What is good, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's going on with Tesla, SPY, Nvidia, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers, and break down what's going on with the charts so far, what earnings are going to be coming out for tomorrow, and what the economic calendar suggests as well. But before I break things up, all this information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things. I am personally not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull, the link down below, and deposit any amount of money into the account, you are guaranteed up to 12 free stocks. The offer ends tomorrow, so check it out before they run out. Anyways, let's break down what's going on with the market. So the market got a pretty nice green day for today as we saw some buyers defend their positions. But in the process of doing so, we could see that SPY formed a bearish divergence. And this suggests that there may be a slight pullback tomorrow by the time we open. Maybe we get like a little pop and drop, or we just kind of like drop to start us off. But I don't believe that this is going to be anything too significant. I think it's going to be like one of the final pullbacks before we start to see more bulls step in, before the big short squeeze is about to start, especially for the month of November. So I'm leaning more bullish for the markets. I think the market's going to get a bounce overall, but there might be another pullback for tomorrow before we get that bounce, because tomorrow is going to be the last day before the FOMC meeting. We could see some like profit taking and stuff like that, and maybe not like the best price action on a day like that. So we're going to be watching these key levels very carefully. We're going to be breaking down some other important factors. As a reminder for earnings, we have Pfizer, Caterpillar, and just a couple of others before the market opens. After the market closes, we have AMD, Paycom, and just a few others. So make sure you watch these earnings carefully. When it comes to other factors affecting the markets, there's not a whole ton of significant pieces of data for tomorrow. All the data above this highlighted area I have is basically before the market opens. So we have the unemployment cost benefits and wages coming out in the morning. This is going to be an hour before the market opens. House price index after that. And then 15 minutes after the market opens, we have the Chicago PMI, giving us a gauge of the economy. This is going to be important, so expect some volatility 15 minutes after the market opens. And then 30 minutes after open at 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern time, we have the consumer confidence report. The Fed services data is going to be 30 minutes after that, so at 10:30 a.m. So for the first 15 and 30 minutes and the first hour, expect some high volatility depending on how these pieces of data look. And that's pretty much it for the rest of the data for the day. There's nothing else that's too crazy coming out. And the market used to be extremely fearful. Now it's just fearful as we're starting to see a shift and we're starting to see buyers defend their positions. The market was at like extreme fear that in a much worse manner, and it's becoming a little bit less fearful than before. You see this is going up, and you can see market momentum is still it's still kind of weak, but it's starting to show some signs of improvement. And there's a good chance that the market may have bottomed already. Now, we're also seeing some other indicators, such as the McClellan Volume Summation Index, is telling us signs that the market is in a bottoming process. And we're just going to be watching to see how this continues. Now, when it comes to the overall midterm election cycle, you guys can see right here, historically, the market tends to sell off and bottom near the very end of October, and that's what seems to have happened. And then going into November, we tend to see some very bullish price action, a slight pullback, and then even more upside as we end November, going into December for more upside. But it doesn't have to be just like this much downside. It could just be like a push up, a week of selling, then more push ups after that, or we could just uptrend overall, and that's when the market turns more bullish for November/December. So I think November/December are going to be quite good. I don't think we're going to get much of a massive pullback in November like this one. It might be more like the purple line right here, like the blue one. It's still very probable, and this is likely going to relate to this election in particular because seasonality is still playing a big factor in how the market's moving. So what do I see for tomorrow with the bearish divergence? We're going to be looking for a retracement on SPY by the time we open. There's a good chance we're going to be watching for 414 to be retested. If we lose this, we're going to be watching 413.3 and then 412.5, this entire zone right here. If we lose 412.5, there's a good chance we're going to fill the gap all the way back down to 411 and then bounce off that. But that's a little bit extreme, so I'm not really counting on that. But I do anticipate a slight pullback to come. We could be watching for 414, if not 413.3. And we're going to be watching to see if buyers start to defend around here. If the market does pull back a bit, that's going to be completely normal, completely fine. I'm not going to really panic because I'm still confident that on Wednesday, we're going to see the real move. And that's going to be when Jerome Powell gives his speech at the FOMC meeting, when we see the next rate hike decision on Wednesday. That's going to be the real move maker. That's going to be the big catalyst for the markets. Tomorrow is just going to be another day where we just see the market do its thing without as much significant data. So a slight pullback could come right before we get a monstrous rally for November. I think we may pull back just a little bit tomorrow to grab some liquidity for more buyers to start stepping in. So we're going to be watching this 414 area, 413.3, and watch and see how SPY could bounce. If we do get a bounce either off like 413.3 or even like 412.5, make sure you watch these levels as resistance and watch 416 as key resistance on SPY. If we break this, watch it try to push up towards 416.75 to 417. If we break that 418, then 420 are on the table. But I do anticipate a little drop to start us off, and we'll see where the buyers try to step in. For the QQQ, I'm seeing the same thing. I believe that looking at the triple Q, and we're going to actually look at some other things, looking at the bigger trend on the QQQ, on the daily especially. QQQ is looking like it's trying to reverse. It would be completely normal if it tries to like back test this area right here, this previous resistance, so very close to like 348 for a slight pullback, then a bounce and an attempt to start pushing up for 352 looks probable. We have a bullish looking daily candle telling us the trend could shift. So I see maybe a pullback in the morning, then a bounce possibly on the QQQ. On SPY's daily chart, it's the same thing that's going on, right? A little drop and a bounce seems very probable, and it still looks like it has potential. The weekly is looking pretty good too, but we're going to be watching these levels very, very carefully nonetheless. So for the QQQ, we're going to be watching this thing retest 348 potentially. If we fail to, hold this, watch it come down towards 346.5 and then bounce. If it doesn't bounce off 348 already, so watch those areas for a potential bounce after we pull back a little bit, and then watch 350 as resistance alongside 352. For Tesla stock, I think something similar is going to play out because Tesla's not looking the best. Now, Tesla is basically holding this support right here. When you go to the weekly chart, you will see the 200 EMA is acting as support for Tesla. The red line down here, you guys can see it. That is what's holding Tesla up so far. And now the question is, will Tesla try to hold this support or not? Is Tesla going to end up breaking below it? We're going to just have to wait and see how this looks. If we lose this tomorrow, if we do pull back with the market, watch 194 to be retested. And then below that, we're going to be watching our 193 support, 190, then 186. Now, it's getting very tight right now, but it could be forming like a bearish structure looking at the current setup. So there's a risk of Tesla coming down. It's a little bit higher. So just be very careful because we look weak on the weekly. We're going to be watching 196.76 or around that area for the 200 EMA test. Let's see if Tesla holds it or not. If we lose it, there's going to be some downside coming. I just wanted to warn you about that. And let's see if buyers can try to defend 190 at the very least. So there's a risk of this. Let's watch and see if Tesla holds the support. If it does manage to hold, Tesla could try to push back up to 200, but I'm not really leaning in that direction just yet. It's just not looking the best, especially because the market could cool off a bit more. So there's a risk of some more downside, but we'll see what happens after that once we test that 200 EMA. For Nvidia stock, I think that this thing is going to start respecting an uptrend very soon. When we look at Nvidia let me just pull up our weekly. Nvidia is still on a slight downtrend, but the weekly is starting to form a doji, which could be signaling for a big change in its overall trend. On the daily, however, I would say that it's looking quite decent. Looks like it's trying to bounce as well. But in order for this trend to get its confirmation, we want to be watching to see how Nvidia reacts. So what's good about Nvidia for the bulls would be the fact that we have a nice inverse head and shoulder structure. It's trying to uptrend, forming a bullish wedge. So I do anticipate more upside for Nvidia. It may come back down a little bit towards 407, then bounce and start pushing up for 421. That looks like it's on the table. And I am anticipating upside for the next few days. We have a very clean looking inverse head and shoulders with the double bottom making the head. So I could see this thing pushing up for 421 very soon. Maybe by Wednesday or Thursday, I'm anticipating more upside. It may cool off a little bit first, but look for a bounce after that. Now, Aapl is on this nice uptrend. It's been respecting this for quite some time. We're going to be watching to see if it can manage to hold these levels or not. So watch and see if this holds. If we hold this level and bounce off of this, we could see more upside for 172. If we break below this, it's going to come down towards 168. So what do I think is more probable? So far, we're holding. There's no sign of a break. So let's not assume it's going to break yet unless we get confirmation. So it looks like Apple's going to try to rebound a little bit. It may start off kind of weak as the market's a little weak in the morning, but then if Apple tries to bounce and push up, this could help the market push up later on. So I do anticipate a little drop and a bounce in the markets. I think that is very probable. I think that this trend is going to follow around. I also want to add that on Aapl, we have an interesting structure developing. This thing's been uptrending on the daily chart. Uh, I believe that this is very important to watch for because we're approaching the 200 EMA at 171.55. So I could see Apple cool off a bit and maybe try to make its way up towards that level, but we'll see if this breaks or not. If we get above the daily 200 EMA on Apple, it's going to be a good sign for the bulls. If it rejects here, because it's going to have some tough resistance, we'll see what it does, at least over the next few days. If we break it, that's going to be, if we fail to break it, it's going to be a sign for some potential downside. And then for a couple of others, we have like Microsoft, for instance. Got a nice little bounce on it, which is quite decent to see. It's up 2%. I'm going to pull up the 4 hour because we need to see more specific details for the intraday price action. We're approaching this imbalance up here. I think Microsoft wants to make its way up to this 340 area, potentially even 345. I believe it's going to cool off a little bit, retest 335, and then bounce for 340 very, very soon. AMD has earnings, so we'll see if buyers try to step in right before. It might not do too much, might just trade sideways approaching its earnings, and then we'll see what happens after its earnings come out tomorrow. After that, I just wanted to add that just a couple of others, guys. I want to make this video kind of quick. The VIX is down. We got a nice rejection on the VIX. We have a nice head and shoulder structure. The VIX is going to be testing the 50 EMA very soon. So if we do test 18.77, if we break below this, 17 is on the table, and this could be because of the market bouncing more, but it may play out over the next few days. So I am more bullish for the stock market. I just think that we may get a slight pullback tomorrow just to start us off before upside either later on during the day, if not by Wednesday/Thursday. So we'll see what happens. Coinbase is turning more bullish on the 4 hour time frame. We could see this retrace towards 70, then bounce and start pushing up for 76.96, wanting to fill the imbalance. So I see some upside for the next week. Google has a nice bullish wedge trying to form as it's trying to curl. I think that Google is going to cool off a bit towards 125 flat, maybe 124, and then bounce and start pushing slowly towards 131 over the next couple of trading days. Amazon's looking a bit more decent. We may backtest this 130 area, then bounce and start pushing up for 135. So watch for 130, then 135 after that for a bounce. Meta got a nice bounce as well. We have a nice bullish wedge, but we're going to be testing our 306 area, which is going to be a key resistance for the next couple of days. I think Meta is going to retrace towards 300, maybe even 299, then bounce, and it's going to eventually push it for 306. Depending on the FOMC meeting, we could break it or not, but we'll have to just wait and see. It's up 2%, so we'll see if this holds. And with that said, guys, I just want to thank you all so much for listening. All right, so that's it for the video. I want to make this one very quick. Have a great day, and I'll see you guys tomorrow morning for the next one. Thanks again, and peace out.